Um, hey guys, it's really great to have you all here. Join us today for this super interesting topic and super interesting panel with two people who I think are making waves, globally in this space that is just confusing, exciting, bewildering. Depends on your take. I'll just get started. So most of you are aware, Antler is a global VC. We're one of the fastest growing platforms, and we are global. We are in 12 countries, and we are quite decentralized ourselves. So the way the Web 2.0 is transforming into Web 3.0, the social web moving into the decentralized web. This has been super exciting for a lot of us, and we've been trying to make sense of it. Of course, with the asset side of things or the application side of things, and now with NFTs. So we've got investments, but really a topic that we're always trying to learn more about. And I'm so glad we have Alex and Pplpleasr here today. We've got an audience from about, I think, 20 plus countries. And the best part when I was going through the list was a lot of you put metaverse as your location, which is perfect for as a starting point for this. I'm Nitin Sharma. I'm a partner at Antler. Most of my career has been around early stage startups in the US and India. And like a lot of people a few years back, I started to dive into Web 3.0. I wasn't a trader, but I really got excited about the future of the internet and how, self-sovereign identity or moving away from this controlled social web to moving into a completely new internet. That's what really excited me. And I think that the first time I heard of NFTs was when I came across ERC 721, which was really just a standard for creating NFTs. And I want to say even in 2018, 19, right, it seemed like something out there. It seemed like something that would eventually become relevant big. And I think I, like a lot of people, was sort of surprised by how quickly, especially post, in the COVID era starting last year, NFTs just took off. And now to the extent that we would consider NFTs as probably the biggest force that's actually driving the consumerization of this whole thing, creating mass adoption, because people in crypto have been talking about mass adoption for so long, and that was one of the missing links, which is getting solved. And I think NFTs that deserves so much credit for making that happen. And then you've got exciting areas around convergence of how it's not just the NFTs, but how they play together with DAOs, with DeFi. So we're going to get into a lot of that. To set the context, I thought it would be interesting to just share a few slides just to give you guys a taste of what's been going on. So hope you can see the screen. So I'll just set the context. NFT sales volume, 2.5 billion now in just the last 6 months. So this is actually becoming big and mainstream. OpenSea, the first and largest P2P marketplace, and Alex is the co-founder here. It's really seen volumes shoot up to over 200 million in July. And it's not just overall volumes, it's actually driven by, cumulative rise in number of actual traders. And you can see these are people who've done at least one transaction. So this is fairly meaningful, I think. And then, of course, we saw in March the massive, surprising, shocking news about the 69 million purchase of the Beeple 100 days, 1,000 days, sorry, by Metacoven, which again turned out to be, interestingly, two folks from India who created this consortium and pro NFT journalism movement. And of course, there's a lot of talk about what this means for artists. This quote is actually quite interesting. Is this actually the largest, greatest unlock of artist opportunity in 100+ years? This isn't suboptimal or fringe. It's a vastly improved one. At the same time, it's not just about art or media. This is also becoming mainstream with sports fans, for example. A lot of you might be familiar with NBA Top Shot. These numbers are actually a bit dated, but you can see serious volume of purchasing that's happening. But people are buying just their favorite moments from famous NBA games. At the same time, there are a lot of skeptics. Is this actually a fad? And a lot of people would dismiss this as, this is gambling. This is almost like, a degenerate future. And as it happens in crypto, if you have a month where volumes go down, suddenly you have skeptics writing off the whole space. And so now people are already asking if the NFT boom has gone bust, which I find very strange. But as it is with a lot of these emerging technologies, right, we're somewhere in the middle on that spectrum. And I thought this was an interesting way to look at it, where we had the wave of crypto assets and DeFi until 2019, 20, and then NFTs sort of became a big topic of conversation. And now the interesting thing in the, where this goes in the future is how NFTs work together with DeFi and DAOs and so on. So that was some context. But most importantly, I just want to first get to our two speakers, guests. So Pplpleasr and Alex, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't we just get started with your journeys, your stories? Pplpleasr, you want to go first?
You're muted.
You're muted. Some things never change.
I unmuted myself. Start again. I'm Pplpleasr. I'm a digital artist, and I've been creating digital art for about like 6-7 years now. I used to work in the visual effects industry and also in 3D animation. And about last summer, I started creating these animations for various DeFi protocols and sort of made my name in the space. And then in March, I collaborated with Uniswap to create their V3, which I ended up listing and selling as an NFT for charity. And it sold for more than $500,000. And my life blew up after. Basically what happened was a bunch of prominent members within the crypto community had come together and formed a DAO, also known as Decentralized Autonomous Organization, called Pplpleasr DAO, to purchase the piece. And because it's the first time that it ever happened, and it really sort of reflected the whole ethos of like communityism and Ethereum, and using the blockchain to sort of dictate or make decisions and then collective funds. And so the whole story kind of came together really nicely. And since then, I've joined as an honorary member, and now I'm just continuing to see how we can do cool stuff in the space.
Awesome. And maybe tell us a little bit more about your journey before you sort of became Pplpleasr.
Yeah, so I studied a design media arts program in LA, and then I basically graduated early to start working at a visual effects production studio, working on, I think the first project that I worked on was Batman versus Superman. And so yeah, I was doing mostly lighting and compositing in my career, but I also am curious as well. And so yeah, and then since then, I've just been working in on movies and sometimes feature animation. And then most recently, before I became unemployed, I was working at Blizzard, and I was working on their cinematics team. So if you guys have seen the Diablo 4 cinematic, so you should watch it because it's cool.
And so what was sort of the aha moment for you? I mean, how did you discover NFTs?
I discovered it around the same time as DeFi Summer. So there was a famous crypto influencer who was promoting earn finance at the time, who goes by the pseudonym Blue Kirby. And so around that time, actually, Blue Kirby was selling sort of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a DeFi protocol, related, and they were, he was selling them for a lot of he was doing really well, basically. And then so that was the first time that I had learned about NFTs, because also Yearn Finance was the first DeFi that I had collaborated with. And so through all that, I discovered NFTs, and I sold a little bit here and there, but never anything really serious. And I had never auction until.
Got it. We'll talk more about sort of your fascinating journey, but Alex, you want to go?
Yeah, my name's Alex Atallah. I'm the co-founder and CTO of OpenSea. We started at the very end of December 2017, right after the CryptoKitties boom. We were actually working on another crypto project at the time. All of 2017, for at least the latter half, when ICOs were all the craze, my co-founder and I just started exploring crypto, looking for what the killer app of crypto would be, if there is one. You know, we were very interested in crypto because it is an unstoppable technology, and clearly something interesting could happen with it, but we didn't feel like anything interesting was happening yet. Just a lot of potential and a lot of very good developers and insightful people joining the space. So we initially started working on this project that would give you crypto if you let people share your Wi-Fi hotspot. And the moment that CryptoKitties took off, we had just joined Y Combinator. We pivoted the very first day to work on OpenSea. And the reason was NFTs were very different from everything else we were seeing in crypto. They were driven around a lot more than just flipping things and pumping and dumping and the value of a single token. They were multimedia, they were social. We saw users who were interacting with them, not just for financial gain, but owning them because they actually treasured and loved the tokens they were collecting. There was this emotion that was kind of tangible that we could see in user groups. And we talked to many, many users about their experiences early on every day. Another important thing about NFTs is that they were really flexible. Similar to cryptocurrencies in general, they're incredibly programmable, and we saw that they would be usable for a lot more than just gaming. At the time, there was CryptoKitties, Decentraland, and CryptoPunks. So gaming, virtual worlds, and art all emerged pretty quickly. And the potential for them was, you know, it helped us see a lot of possibilities like domain names, software licenses, and more. So we were excited about the potential, and we were excited about the reasons that people were getting into it. And the toy of CryptoKitties, often a lot of big industries start out looking like toys, but are really much more. And you kind of have to dig deep to figure out which ones those are.
Right, and I'm guessing when you saw I mean, it sounds like CryptoKitties was the aha moment for you, and then there was a lull, right? For some time, people thought it was done. It must have taken some conviction to actually keep going. So tell us about that.
Yeah, there was never, it was slow growing in 2019 and part of 2020. And part of the reason was crypto was going through a bear market. Part of the reason was games took a lot longer to develop than we thought they might. Games outside of crypto take a really long time. Like Pplpleasr would know, it takes years to launch a AAA game. But it's like making a movie and building a software company at the same time. So it's significantly taxing and involves a lot of non-crypto related investment. So we saw a lot of games sputter out and fail, and some give up, and some pivot, and then some just kind of persisted all along the way. But it took a while to get their viral loops right. And we're seeing a lot of these viral loops working out well now, many years later, like with Axie Infinity and Zedrun. So what turned out what we saw volume kind of like have spiky moments with big new ideas, like ENS at the end of 2018 did a drop of, or sorry, at the end of 2019 did a drop of their short names on OpenSea. And that was the first way people could have names associated with wallet addresses and also potentially names associated with domains and websites. Lots of those projects kept the hope going. And we were also very encouraged by the projects that stuck it out with us. We were definitely not the only one. Well, you know, there was something a lot more exciting than just like making a game for each one. You were building an economy, and the community, it's a lot more like family than communities of other projects. Like all of your fans and users are supporting you unconditionally if you're a developer building an NFT community, because they have a share in your success, and they actually they have emotional connections to the NFTs they're collecting. So then we saw artists pick this up in 2020, and things really spun up from there.
So, you know, I think we obviously have a diverse audience, and I'm guessing pretty much everyone is fairly familiar with the basics of NFTs, but it might just help to take a second and hear from both of you your perspectives on why NFTs are a big deal. And of course, there's a very, very clear you know, argument around just how art and media, the value chain, if you will, you know, has been so broken for a long time. So maybe we could start with you, Pplpleasr. I mean, what makes this such a big deal for a creator?
I think, you know, previously, I was actually speaking with somebody, we were having a discussion about how previously, especially when you're working in something like digital art, because as the world we know it, we're so used to, for example, like physical art being made and sold, but in the form of digital art, we usually think of, oh, movies, you know, commercials, video games. And so independent digital artists weren't actually really a market before. I mean, you know, maybe if you think about it, it'd be like, oh, somebody makes digital art and they print it out as a print, you know, to sell to people. And so that literally the concept of evaluating and selling and trading digital art, I think didn't really exist before NFTs. I mean, it was also sort of an aha moment for me before as well. I was creating digital art during a time where I was just job hunting. So I was just doing it to sort of pass my time and also express myself. But I never thought that I could actually sell it, right? I was just posting it on Instagram, hoping to bring more engagement to my art. I don't even know what my end goal was. I think I just wanted to, you know, sort of build a portfolio that way. And so I think, you know, for example, previously we were posting digital art on Instagram and then helping Instagram make money. And then the way that Instagram would reward us was paying us in likes and engagement. And then so with the introduction of NFTs, there's actually a way to sort of introduce value and utility to your digital artwork that you're creating beyond just sort of having. So I think there was a separation before as well, where, you know, for example, if I'm working for Blizzard and stuff, obviously I get to express myself creatively in some ways, but ultimately it is somebody else's like vision. You know, we're all sort of small cogs in a big machine. And it's very difficult to work as an independent digital artist in the previous role. So you're really just sort of trading your skill set with something that's of demand in the real market. So for example, for video games, movies, TV shows, commercials, and sort of like online content. And so now with NFTs, you're seeing a lot more artists coming out and just being able to monetize on their digital artwork.
Yeah, and maybe as you know, for folks who may be less familiar, like, how does this work? So, you know, if you could, how simple has it become today for someone who may not be sort of, let's say, a dApp developer or someone deep into Ethereum or another blockchain? How simple is the user experience today? And if you could just share sort of how do you mint an NFT?
Well, to start, you can go on a site like OpenSea and you can just, I mean, they've made it pretty easy. The UI, UX is pretty straightforward. You know, there's other sites like Foundation as well that you can just go on the website and sort of mint your artwork from there.
Got it. Yeah. Alex, your take on sort of, obviously you're dedicating your career to this, but what makes this such a big deal? I think you're on mute.
Thanks. At an abstract level, NFTs are digital goods with property rights. And that makes them unlike any other digital goods, which no one has ever truly owned. All our digital goods have been owned by servers run by companies. And that has some pretty big implications. One is that if you're an influencer building a career around your fans, that means that your audience is really owned by the platform. And if you're on multiple platforms, like if you're a major musician and you have Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you can't coordinate your followers to do anything because they're sharded across multiple platforms. They don't all care about the same collection of anything until you make NFTs. Conversely, if you look at things that do have goods that do have property rights, they're all physical and they're all being tracked obscurely. And it's for like physical property, like real estate, your deeds to things like your car, your licenses to make things, like getting a font license, for example. It's all not being tracked effectively, and there's no clear, like even the fine art market, provenance is really obscure. Looking up who owns a domain, looking up how that domains might have sold on other markets before. Just the standard for these things has been obscurity instead of transparency. So what we've been seeing is just a reversal of all of this paradigm. For artists, like Pplpleasr mentioned, there's a type of artist that was just creating digital art without really having a clear benefit from it. They were doing it purely for the enjoyment of it and for the community that they were getting as a result. And there was no way to actually act on that or to give your community a share of your career. There were also artists who were using things like Instagram and DeviantArt to build their career. They're just hustling to churn out work so that they could get inbound leads and design some company's logo. And they would have to do that like 12 times a year, 12 gigs like that as a freelancer. And then there were some more like long-term freelancers who would always be at odds with the companies that employed them, where they're trying to do as little work for as much money as possible, and companies were trying to get them to do as much work for as little money as possible. There are all these problems with the existing digital art market. There wasn't a really great way of building a community or building a career until NFTs came along. And that's partly why I think digital art blew up first. It was going from 0 to 1. Now it made sense and it was exciting to be a digital artist. You could build a community that all had a share of your career. And for all three of these digital art use cases or digital art categories, it works really well. And big success stories would come out, which would encourage other artists to join, which would cause 4 more success stories, which would cause 4 times as many artists to join. And you eventually got this extremely exciting viral loop going.
Yeah, no, I like how you said, building a community and building a career. I think those two seem like, pretty powerful motivations. Pplpleasr, how do you, to what extent is the economics with sort of royalties, the fact that you don't just have like a one-time thing, but your ownership gives you sort of that stream of income in the future. How much does that matter to creators?
I would imagine it's never a bad thing to have royalties, right? And I think that's what makes NFTs so cool, or just is that you have the ability to sort of code this into the original contract so that it can't be, sort of replaced later on. And so whenever there's like, because I feel like it goes without saying that currently these things are really hard to keep track of when you're saying trading goods in the digital world. And, I think this extends beyond art, right? Like I think hopefully in the future, this royalties thing is something that can roll over to the exchange of other types of goods as well. And I think that's pretty important to mention.
Yeah, guys, by the way, you can start asking questions through the Q&A, and we will make some time at the end for audience Q&A. So please go ahead. So Alex, maybe just switching gears a little bit. So there's the creator side of things, right? And then there's the other side, which you kind of alluded to, which I think of as the real estate play, right? Uh, Decentraland and others are, and there's been a lot of buzz around going into these virtual worlds and sort of buying pieces of virtual real estate. And you've got sort of Atari playing with this in terms of an arcade, etc. So, what's your take on sort of that real estate play? Is that something you think is a fad? Is it something you actually see, accelerating further in the next year or so?
Well, one metric I don't have is how much time are people putting into virtual worlds? Is that time growing over time? If you count all virtual worlds, from everything I heard, it's exploding. This includes Fortnite, Call of Duty, but also Decentraland, crypto voxels. Anytime users are remembering different places in a virtual world and sort of developing familiarity with it, like they develop familiarity with the real world, it's spending time in the virtual world. And the more time you spend, the more you care about it, because you're building basically time equity with the project. So the more time, the more people care about virtual world, the more they want to own it, because that gives you real equity in the virtual world. It allows you to control what gets built on top of it, the kinds of experience that can happen. This includes Roblox. This includes loads of games that are doing really well. The top 10 games by revenue in the world, almost all of their revenue is coming from in-game items being transacted. And those in-game items are usually tied to virtual world. So what's missing here is, one, there's no united metaverse. It's really hard to jump from one world to another. We may be a long time away from a big multi-game metaverse. It's part of Decentraland, and it was part of the vision of like Sandbox, Decentraland, crypto voxels.
What's your best guess?
Space.
Is that like, you think it's 5 years, 10 years?
I don't. It could be 5. It could. I don't know. It's really tough because we haven't seen. I haven't seen like a really sticky experience emerge yet. So we need to. Like one that's building its own universe, but that's a universe that has all of it, like a lot of NFTs backing that the project is Blankos. But they've been like by Mythical Games working on it for a while, and it feels like a Minecraft style experience, like same with Sandbox. And that if we can see a lot of you, if one of them can get a viral loop going that really, really works, then we're probably not many years away. So it's really, I think it'll be fast once there's some sort of foothold that gets created. Right now, we have early adopters in Decentraland and crypto voxels who are hosting events. It's not game focused, it's event focused. So the WIP meetup, for example, was a really cool one, hosted in crypto voxels weekly on Thursdays a couple months ago. And I jumped into one day, and it was all these avatars like climbing up onto a podium, hanging out in this building with one person talking about something they were passionate about that everybody else was listening to. And it felt like a community, even though you couldn't see anyone's faces or real names. It felt like a lot better than a big Zoom call. It felt like something shareable and exciting. And it's also tied to the equity of the event, like the space that you're in. You could see NFTs that people own hanging up on the walls. If you want to be distracted, you can. If you don't want to be distracted, you just look at the speaker. And that optionality gives users so much more freedom than they have in a Zoom call. So it's just better. And you just need to increase the freedom of viewers like they have in the real world. And then you get the virtual world of the future.
Right. I think Pplpleasr probably rejoined. Maybe her signal wasn't great, but another question. I guess you have the best vantage point, uh, being sort of one of the co-founders of OpenSea, to see sort of what are the key trends, right? If you just look at the last couple of months, post that initial boom in April, May, what's changing? Like, what would you point to are two or three big trends in terms of consumer behavior on the marketplace?
Yeah, one is that NFTs with utility are starting to become important. It's building some kind of access for the owners, whether it's access to a secret Discord or Telegram, the ability to enter a digital experience, redeem something, customize something, enter a virtual world. There's a lot of possibilities. It's really kind of an endless creative space. Access software, get off a wait list. I mean, really, people haven't even tried most of the ideas that you could do with a digital key. And the fact that they're tradable means that the community has this built-in hyperloop, where power users will try to acquire more tokens, and then the incentives for like community to interact and find the right market value for each token goes up. So we've been seeing more community building, a lot of traction around collections, where like collectible collections that take art and make many different variations of cool artistic components that are combining together in unique ways. Projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club, Cool Cats, Meebits have all done really well and fall in that category. And their communities are just incredibly engaged. There's things like the Meebits DAO, which emerged to fund projects that build around Meebits. Meebits also have 3D models that go with them, so you can create 3D experiences. They're basically adding a dimension to CryptoPunks. And Bored Ape Yacht Club, by owning an ape, you unlock access to a bunch of cool things and new web experiences and community benefits. So more of that's happening, in addition to more gaming, more photography, some traction in music. The music probably will take a little bit longer because there are a lot of legal issues to sort out, and virtual world is also
Right.
just kind of working on improving the base UX.
So obviously, you guys, being the marketplace, you're incentivized to see all parts of this ecosystem grow. But what, according to you, is hyped? What is it? Was it
Overhyped?
Is overhyped? Yeah.
We saw some celebrities join the NFT space in like March, April, May, drop something and leave. And they never stuck around to really build out the community. And that we've seen just a decrease in volume from drops like those.
Interesting.
Some art that hasn't been really community focused has also declined in volume. So it's not really hyped anymore because the volume is down. But media will often cover it being like, when the media says things like NFTs have crashed, they usually show graphs of like art that didn't have a community and the volume going down, which is a really like biased, has a lot of strong confirmation bias against NFTs, because that was the one category of NFTs that were going down. Others were not. Gaming, collectibles, community NFTs, licenses, virtual world.
Right. So one more question, and then I want to get Pplpleasr back. And hey, great to have you back. You guys also have gone cross-blockchain recently, and another choice. It seems like I believe you guys have chosen not to have your own token. Just thoughts on, if you look at some other marketplaces, they seem to believe that similar to what we saw with exchanges in the crypto asset world, that a native token can kind of create more engagement, more of a incentive structure. How do you guys think about that? Or is that something in the future?
Yeah, we're not thinking about it right now. We don't want a token to be a big distraction. It often leads to an increase in scams and increase in fraud if it's done improperly. So it's really tricky to get right. Maybe it's doable to get right, but we're trying to. We have a long way to go in just improving the experience around NFTs without a token.
Right.
Adding maybe adding a token would be adding fuel to the fire, but what we're more concerned with is like how the fire is set up and if it's scalable, and if the experience for NFT creators, for developers building on OpenSea is the one they want. Great ways of discovering new NFTs, the ability to add new chains to OpenSea so we can show everything that's going on, no matter which chain or platform it's being made on. Better UX around profiles, how you show off the things you own, how you sell, like different ways of selling, new types of liquidity. Those are all just they've always been our most important goals. And
right.
we're very focused on improving those, and we still have a long way to go with that.
That makes sense. So Pplpleasr, I think, if somebody searches your name, there's so much credit you're sort of being given as someone who's inspiring sort of this new movement. And we mentioned community and art earlier, and so clearly Pleasr DAO has you've got a deep connection there. Maybe for the audience, if you could walk through what is Pleasr DAO, and how does the DAO come together with sort of NFT purchasing, and you guys have done some pretty high profile purchases, including an Edward Snowden NFT. So I think the audience would love to understand what's been the thinking there.
Yeah, definitely. So Pplpleasr DAO are kind of like a collective of individuals who come together, and it's almost like an investment collective, but also a curation, and that they seek out basically high profile digital pieces that have historic significance or stand for something that the members of the DAO really care about. So whether it be something for charity, like for a good cause, they care a lot about, for example, like tech and internet privacy. And for example, that's why they bought the Tor piece, sorry, which went for basically by the Tor Project, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting internet privacy. And also the Edward Snowden piece, which is their most expensive piece, which for all the proceeds went to freedom of the press, which helps sort of like basically free speech and free journalism. And I think and they also care about meme and internet culture. So for example, they purchased the original Doge image as an NFT, and that one went for about $4 million at the time in Ethereum. So so I mean, basically every time Pleasr DAO makes a purchase, it's usually like a really, really big piece that they find has historical significance. And part of the sort of ethos of the DAO is also that they're going to, hopefully, because there's a lot of prominent members, for example, in the DeFi community, look into pushing boundaries and seeing what they can do that's new with what's like the pieces in their collection, for example, fractionalizing them. And let's just take Doge for an example, right? Because everybody wants to own this really iconic meme, essentially, but most of us, quite frankly, are not wealthy enough to purchase it. And so with fractionalization, and Pleasr DAO are currently working with actually all of the major NFT platforms to roll out a function where you can purchase a fraction of an NFT, but still have it show up in your wallet. So essentially it would be like a shared ownership of this really, really valuable digital good that you can still sort of like feel like you have ownership over, but not have to spend like $4 million. And so yeah, that's basically the sort of current direction that they're going, and they keep trying new things that are sort of like breaking ground in the space. For example, they recently for the first time did like a DAO to DAO loan, where they have taken the pieces in their collection, 4 of them, and including the ones that they purchased from me, and the Edward Snowden piece, the Tor project piece, and then collateralized it in the Iron Bank and took out a USDC loan. And this is probably one of the first times this has happened. And so they're sort of like, showing what's possible with NFTs, and not just sort of just purchasing it, but that there's other sort of like refinancing that you can do with it. And yeah, so they're excited to sort of see where this goes, and also to share these historically significant pieces with a larger audience and consumer base as well.
Yeah, it sounds so fascinating, because it seems like there's a mix of a little bit of it is niche, and maybe for charitable or mission oriented reasons, that people who have a lot of wealth are able to do this. And the question is, okay, what does this mean for the average person? But then you've also got this new wave of experimentation with fractionalizing and collateralizing, which is super interesting. And both of you, do you actually think NFTs as as a space, you already have the maturity that these things can be used as assets as collateral, or is that a little bit too soon or too cerebral at this point?
Well, I don't know if Alex wants to comment on this, but the same thing is already happening in the real world, where people sort of collateralize real life like luxury or high value goods to take out loans. So I don't really see why there's a too soon, or why this can't be also the case in the digital world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we recently introduced a product change called floor tracking, where you can go to a collection on OpenSea and see its floor price and how it trends over time. And you could sort NFTs by their floor price using our rankings page. And that kind of gives you a sense of what the minimum value of an NFT in a collection might be. It's the lowest possible sale price for it at the moment. The community has been using that as a way of, in a blanket way, valuing like what the minimum possible collateral value is of an NFT. And I think we could see new dApps develop on top of floor prices. For example, like the art blocks just did a massive launch, and it has a lot of secondary trades on OpenSea. I can pull up the collection right now. You go to OpenSea and you search for art blocks, go to art blocks curated, and then click on the icon to view the collection. You'll see that it just launched a bunch of new pieces, so the floor price is down to 0.39. So that's the cheapest amount of the lowest amount of ETH that you can use to acquire one of these pieces, and it would be like an easy way of valuing the collateral value of something without doing a deep dive into the NFT itself.
Makes sense, guys. I have so many more topics in mind, but I think it's a good time to switch to audience Q&A. I wanted to ask about staking and convergence with AR, VR in the future, and this whole idea of curator economy. But let me just start taking some audience questions. And sorry, guys, we won't have time for everyone, so I'm just going to pick a few. I think one good question is, what do you think about Axie Infinity? Maybe if you guys could also inform the audience as to how is that challenging sort of the notions of gaming and earn to play. Maybe Alex, you want to take it?
Axie Infinity is a great example of a game that persisted in the NFT space, weathered through the bear market, and doubled down on their core game loop to figure out what would get users to come back and get like truly obsessed with it. So you come into the project, you can get a scholarship to help get started. You acquire some Axies, which are these kind of cute Pokemon-like characters that can battle each other. And then there's a couple different kinds of grinding that you can do in the game to level up and earn. And you can build basically a career for yourself as an Axie player. And there's quite a lot of people, especially in the Philippines, doing this. So they've been having a serious moment for the last month and a half. And we're really, really excited for them. They're building on kind of a new chain that's EVM based. And we've been lucky to work with them for a while, for the last couple of years.
Got it. A couple of folks have asked this question, which comes up a lot, which is really how do you consider NFTs to be valuable if it's just a screenshot that someone can take and copy the digital image? How do you value something like that? So I know there's a standard answer, which is it's about ownership and people do it for identity status, but I'd love to get your guys' take on it.
I actually think it's beyond just like the ownership and identity status aspect of it. Anything in this world that has value, I think, is a sort of socially agreed upon concept. And so, even like, let's take money, for example, right? The cash, like a piece of, dollar bill, because everybody agrees that it has value, so then it does. And so you can apply the same logic to NFTs, right? Like, why is the Edward Snowden piece so valuable? Correct. You can just take a screenshot of it or something and say, I have it too. But it's more about the sort of to all of the people who first agree and that NFTs are, for example, like are value and that it's a real world, like tradable value good. And then on top of that, there's another layer of all the witnesses that witnessed Edward Snowden mint this NFT and watched the auction go down. So it's sort of like, like going back to this whole shared collective acknowledgement of this concept of value, right? So because all of the people who witnessed this event agree that it has value, therefore it does. And anybody who disagrees are free to do so themselves, but it's I think it's up to the people who agree, who are sort of trading this in value and also trading this, for either money or crypto or however they would like to buy keys. So this sort of like this concept of value stretches beyond just ownership and status, but also it's just a socially agreed upon concept.
Yeah, I think that I agree. Alex, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that covers most of it. I would just add that there's one is utility. There are a lot of NFTs that are valuable for what you can build with them. And ENS names, I think, have a lot of potential that hasn't really been tapped yet because browsers haven't deeply integrated Ethereum names. But imagine if you could, instead of having to go through domain registrars to buy a personal website, you could just go to a marketplace like OpenSea and buy it directly off a smart contract and see exactly how it traded in the past, put them on auction yourself, and have a really peer-to-peer, user-driven liquidity system for it. I think would be pretty powerful. And another thing that drives value is just store value. But if an NFT is like a way of betting on on someone doing well in the future, then by discovering them early or by discovering some project or some community early, you're contributing to, or you're able to store your value in their success. And and bet on their career.
Right. Another, I think Nathaniel and Naveen, two questions, which basically get to the idea of what's next. Is it only about digital goods, and how do NFTs sort of move into the physical world? So maybe Alex, if you have thoughts on, as a marketplace, are you guys already thinking of beyond sort of art, entertainment? People have talked about commercial assets, land, buildings, etc. Does that mean something for OpenSea?
Yeah, I think we're likely to see NFTs change pretty dramatically over the next year or two. We're thinking that land and physical assets might be a ways off, because there's a lot of, the government needs to get a bit in line with NFTs before those are going to work really well, and not in line, but they need to understand them a bit more concretely. The projects that we see coming in the near future, a lot of them are around like new programmable art, at games, virtual world, photography could be interesting. Font, like other types of software licenses that haven't been really discovered yet, like font licenses, usernames in new applications that have a lot of traction. There's a lot of stuff that's digitally native that hasn't been done yet. And that's a lot easier and more straightforward than physical goods. Physical goods do have some really good near-term use cases. Wine, and for example, you could buy a bottle of wine before it's ready, when it's just an NFT. You can do this on OpenSea now by looking up the WIV collection, WIV, and then you can redeem that NFT for the bottle later on. So it's a nice way of like owning the item before it's ready to be shipped to you.
Got it. Yeah, I'm just combining a couple of other questions. Two people have asked, and maybe Pplpleasr, you can take that. How far are we from a decentralized Spotify based on NFTs, or what's next in music? And another question from Govan is, NFT for artists who don't work in a digital medium. We sort of addressed it, part of it, but painters, sculptors, what do you guys see happening in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
I think with the music, it's really hard to say because there's so many sort of weird legal issues surrounding music ownership and the way that it's distributed. And as of the current reality that we live in, Chris Dixon from A16Z wrote a really, really good thread, I think last week or something, where he was talking about the comparison of the rise of the game industry, or the success of the game industry and gaming industry in the past, however many years, versus the music industry, and sort of diving into why that is. And then, obviously you should go read the thread, but the higher level concept of it is basically, he was talking about how the gaming industry have been really sort of brave to take on, to adapt and take on new forms of, economics, or like business models, for example, like free to play and, in-game, like in-app purchases versus, just sort of like paying to play the game. That's just an example. Whereas the music industry in the past few years, or however many years, have literally just been sort of focused on hunting down, like licenses and royalties, and so I think that's sort of like a resistance towards like adapting to change, and sort of social and behavioral changes as well, because that reflects largely on consumers, has really taken back the music industry. And so similarly, this whole movement of NFTs and digital ownership is another sort of paradigm shift, or change in consumer behavior. And so it would be interesting to see whether or not the music industry can also respond adaptively towards this, as opposed to creating resistance, which I think would hurt them in the long run, obviously.
Got it. I know we're almost out of time. Maybe one last question is if you both were to take a guess at what the metaverse would look like 5 years from now, what's your imagination?
5 years from now, I think that there's going to be a lot more direct with fan engagement from creators. Fandom has always been something that should appreciate over time. The fan that you earn 10 years ago is more valuable than the fan you earned yesterday. But that just hasn't really been the case in social media so far. They're all just following you. But when NFTs come along, like NFTs are changing this, and that means these economies of scale instantly pop up behind every great creator, every great project, every company. So we'll see digital assets everywhere. Probably digital assets for physical goods will start to work, and there'll be a lot more projects for those. And the metaverse is going to be just a lot of different web experiences and VR experiences and virtual experiences that all connect to NFTs. It'll probably be really balkanized, really spread across lots of blockchains and platforms. It might be the case that someone takes off. I don't know if 5 years is enough, but maybe there's one major one, like a Ready Player One. And what I think is more certain is that NFTs will be the protocol for exchanging value on the internet instead of just information, which is so far all the internet has been able to do. And the next internet is about exchanging value for communities. So our job is to be the site that shows you everything that's going on, no matter what chain or platform, our job at OpenSea. But we'll probably see some platforms blow up, and maybe one winner takes all metaverse experience that brings in a lot of new users and highly engaged virtual reality users.
Pplpleasr, last word.
I mean, I agree with everything Alex just said, and I just hope that our hardware and technology actually catch up to sort of what we have this concept of for what we hope the metaverse is going to be. For example, we're quite far from what Ready Player One would depict, for example. And yeah, I don't think that, I think maybe part of the reason why people are hesitant to sort of dive into the metaverse currently as well is also because it's not very immersive or convincing, right? So hopefully as the technology continues to evolve and adapt and catch up to what people have the vision for, I would be a lot more bullish towards that future. I already am, but.
Yeah, well, guys, in the audience, my apologies. I know there are about 20 other questions which we couldn't get to. I think we covered a lot of ground, but not nearly enough, just given how much is happening here. Alex, Pplpleasr, thank you guys so much for taking the time. I know you guys are super busy shaping the future of this, so we really appreciate you coming online today and spending some time with us. And yeah, for those in the audience, we'll continue this series with more topics in Web 3.0, certainly the future. So thanks so much. Good night or good morning.
Thanks for having
us.
Thanks, Nitin.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.